Area 51 is an Air Force base that tests experimental aircraft. It has been well known for alien conspiracies and government secrets for decades. I was in the Air Force for 6 years and worked in Area 51 as an airplane mechanic. But I was dishonorably discharged after I snuck into restricted areas and found out about Area 51's biggest secret. People often think of aliens when they hear someone mention that place. But there is something else the government is hiding. Recently, there has been news of people supposedly signing up to raid Area 51, and even if they could get past all the guards and weaponry, they will not be prepared for what the government is hiding down there. 3 years ago, I was recruited to Area 51. They would have me stay in the airfield or in hangars, working with aircrafts before and after flying. When my shift was over, I would go into my living quarters and rest. My shifts vary from time to time. For the most part, I would be working during the day, but there would be times when I am scheduled to work in the middle of the night. Aside from those places, I had little to no access to the entire base. Despite the strict rules, I was given a very fun work environment. I could not stop thinking of what the government could be hiding, and as the months went by, I often had dreams of me discovering the secrets. My discoveries in those dreams were many things: aliens, teleportation devices, time travel, advanced spacecrafts, and more. Sometimes I would make my own conspiracy theories with my coworkers, and they also made up silly theories of what they are hiding, such as machines that can make an inanimate object sentient. One day, after my shift ended, I noticed a man passing out from heat exhaustion. A team rushed in and sent him to the medical building. As he was strapped to the stretcher, I saw an ID card fall to the ground. Before I could tell them about the card, they were already gone. I examined the ID and noticed a barcode at the bottom of the card. Rather than going to my living quarters, I snuck into one of the restricted buildings. I was able to use the card to get inside. I found myself in a dark hallway with many big windows. I saw people working with advanced computers in the rooms and continued down the hallway. The hallway ended with a steep staircase with a small door at the bottom. When I opened the door, I was in the middle of another dark hallway. There were 3 arrows pointing to the left and 2 arrows pointing right. The left arrows read, Weapon Files, Containment Center, and Restrooms. The right arrows read, Prototype Aircraft Research and Laboratory. The Containment Center caught my attention, and it made me curious. I walked to the Containment Center, and I was surprised to find that it was just a small storage. At first, there wasn't much in the room. However, as I looked around, I tripped on something, and as I tried to balance myself, my right hand accidentally pushed a secret button on the wall. This led to the floor opening, revealing a spiral staircase. When I reached the bottom, I found myself in a very large rectangular room with 2 floors. The top floor had machinery on the walls and an old computer on a desk. The bottom floor had countless enclosures that were heavily secured, and it was like a zoo of nightmares. Some were sleek humanoids, were very sleek and stood roughly 35 feet tall, and they had folded in wings on their back. Others were colossal and possibly mutated animals like scorpions, mountain lions, rams, and more. They all looked zombified, had jet black skin, yellow sunken eyes, and needle-like teeth. I walked to the old computer for answers, but it was no longer working. However, I noticed that there was a desk drawer, and inside was a dusty logbook. The entries date back to the late 50s, and they left me feeling unsettled. Here are the entry logs that were written in the book. Wednesday, April 15th, 1957. While researching the effects of the nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we found that some plants and animals in the area have mutated. One of Area 51's top scientists, Dr. Shar Aznable, hypothesized that constantly exposing nuclear radiation to human beings could speed up the evolution process by manipulating their DNA. 24 anonymous test subjects signed up for the experiment. They were placed in a large room filled with nuclear radiation and were given food and nutrients daily to keep them alive. It has been 12 hours since the experiment began, and nothing out of the ordinary has occurred. Thursday, April 17th, 1957. Test subjects began to show signs of high-level radiation poisoning, and they have started to lose all their hair. Scientists in radiation suits rushed in to provide them life support. No matter what medicines they scientists used on the test subjects, their bodies instantly developed a counter for it, instantly becoming immune to the medicine. The test subjects were given opportunities to leave the room and get medical help, but they all resisted and wanted the experiment to continue. Dr. Aznable ordered their blood samples to be taken, and the scientists were all shocked by what they discovered. Their DNA was changing rapidly, which explains why the patients grew immunity to any medicine given to them. After examining their blood, the scientists went back to check on the test subjects, and they found that the radiation was no longer harming them. Monday, April 22nd, 1957. At 5:30 a.m., some of the test subjects began displaying very disturbing behavior. About 10 of them began to go crazy and started to aggressively eat their own flesh. They appeared to ignore the pain as they ripped out multiple chunks of their skin, revealing massive bloody wounds. A few of them even ripped on their eyes and violently smashing their heads against the walls. As they constantly self-inflicted, their bodies were simultaneous healing very fast. A squad of 3 guards rushed in and fired tranquilizers at them, but they instantly attacked guards. The first guard had his arms ripped off, and 2 test subjects shoved their heads into the wounds, and they ate him alive. The second guard tried to shoot the subjects, but one of them snuck up to him from behind and ripped out his spine with his head attached. The third guard was badly injured and tried to escape while the subjects were eating the remains of the other guards. But several other test subjects got on top of him like a flock of seagulls eating remains of food at the beach. All I could hear was his agonized screams and bones cracking as those things devoured him. When they finished eating, the only remains were a few puddles of blood and a few bones. Eventually, all test subjects were tranquilized, were heavily restrained. A neurologist who was involved with the experiment named Dr. Sarah Harvey discovered that the radiation has negative effects on their brain and sometimes causes patients to lose their sanity and get violent. Because of this, all test subjects were carefully monitored since the incident. Wednesday, April 25th, 1957. At 4:45 p.m., the test subjects started to grow rapidly, instantly breaking out of the restraints. Their eyes were now sunken into their heads, and their teeth became much sharper and needle-like. They were estimated to be 8 feet tall. When guards rushed in, the test subjects brutally killed and ate them like before. Rather than attempting to restrain or knock them out, we decided to barricade the room to prevent them from breaking out. They calmed down and sat quietly for the rest of the day, but they kept looking at us, and it left me feeling unsettled. Tuesday, April 30th, 1957. At 9:30 a.m., the test subjects' body temperatures skyrocketed. They began to drastically mutate and grow rapidly as their bodies glowed bright red. Blood spewed from their limbs as they changed. We could hear their bones cracking. They screamed in agony, and it gradually changed into an animalistic roar. The shape of their skulls also changed, now vaguely resembling a snake's skull. Their jaws moved outward and began to form 2 small tusks. As the test subjects transformed, our scientists noticed that there was no trace of reproductive organs. When they stopped mutating, their bodies cooled down, their skin turned into a charcoal color, and they froze into a hibernate state. With the room they were in now destroyed, the test subjects were no longer exposed to any radiation. When Dr. Aznable ordered to get samples of the blood that spewed out, the scientists found that their DNA was still rapidly mutating. Constantly adjusting to the surrounding environment, the test subjects were now considered to be an evolved form of human beings and were given the scientific name Homo colossus because they were 35 feet tall. We also gave them the code name Omega. We plan on observing and studying the giants while they are in this condition. Saturday, May 25th, 1957. The Omegas have remained in their hibernate state for a long time, until today at 4 p.m. There was a tremor that shook the area, and it awakened them. They awoke roaring very aggressively, and they began to mutate once more. A massive pair of wings burst out of their backs. The Omegas started running in a panic and tried to fly. They ended up crushing nearby buildings and vehicles. People scrambled and unleashed machine guns, rifles, tanks, bombs, and missiles at the monsters. At first, the giants were getting badly wounded. However, they started to generate an energy field that was bonded to their skin to protect themselves, and rapidly healed from their wounds. The Omegas were even able to focus their energy field at the palm of their hands, unleashing devastating photon blasts at the people shooting them. With their energy fields being focused at their hands, this left them more vulnerable to attacks. While they were shooting photon blasts, multiple jets came from behind and fired a barrage of missiles, injuring the giants. Eventually, the Omegas flew out of Area 51 at supersonic speed and were later reported to be resting together in a remote location in Nevada. When President Dwight D. Eisenhower was informed of this, he ordered the military to kill them with nuclear weapons to prevent them from hurting innocent people. We are now preparing for Operation Plumbob to put an end to this threat, but Eisenhower wants to cover it up, claiming that it will be nuclear tests. Sunday, May 26, 1957. People who were exposed to the photon energy during the attack began to act animalistic and violent towards other people. In a private office, there was a mangled corpse of a young woman. Her eyeballs, nose, tongue, left arm, and right leg were unable to be found. The victim was found lying near her desk, and her right shoulder appeared to be bitten off. Causes of death were believed to be from one of the people exposed to the photon energy, but there was no trace of anyone else in the room. The entire base was now in lockdown, and everyone tried to hunt down the infected. Many people went missing and presumed dead. Monday, May 27, 1957. The infected ones are still out there killing people in the base. More and more mangled remains of corpses with body parts missing being found. I have currently barricaded myself in my quarters with a shotgun nearby. About 5 minutes ago, I was walking down a hallway and started to hear loud banging noises coming from the vents. I cautiously continued down the hallway. Suddenly, I saw one of the infected burst out of the ceiling at the other side of the dark hallway, and I was better look at the abomination. It looked very similar to the mutated test subjects before they transformed into the Homo colossus. It gave out an ear-piercing screech and ran towards me. I had my shotgun with me and fired it 3 times. The bullets hardly injured the infected, and my room was between the injected and I. I decided to run to my room, and the infected clawed at my arm and leg. Although I was wounded, I was able to get in my room and barricade the door. The infected slammed on the door, giving out several shrieks, and I then heard it walk away through the corridor. We are supposed to use a nuclear weapon on those Omegas tomorrow, but we still got those things running around the base. Tuesday, May 28, 1957. Operation Plumbob has officially begun. I was in the medical building when a report came in that a nuclear bomb was dropped directly on top of the Omegas, and it successfully destroyed them. However, when a convoy of troops investigated the bomb site, they were overrun by infected animals in the area. Like the infected and the test subjects we have had in our base, they had a jet black skin, oversized, had sunken eyes, and were downright aggressive. The weapons the soldiers used had little effect on them, because they had photon energy fields like the Omegas. Luckily, the convoy had a special gas with them that they used to put infected into an unconscious state. Later that day, multiple specimens were sent to Area 51 for research. Sunday, June 2nd, 1957. All of the infected humans in the facility transformed into Omegas and burst out of the buildings. Luckily, none of them were near the medical facility I'm currently in. There were far less casualties than the first outbreak, because the military was able to lure them outside the base, and they bombed them with the gas used on the other infected. When the Omegas fell unconscious, scientists took samples of their blood and compared it to the other infected creatures. They found bacteria made up of photon particles and radiation in their blood. If an infected organism dies, this bacteria would become airborne. If another organism gets in contact, they would become infected and drastically mutate. The bacteria would completely take over organism, and it would steal memories from the host, as well as the memories of previous hosts. We named this bacteria the Zenith Parasite, or ZP for short. These things must be contained in Area 51. If any ZP-infected organisms leave the facility, they could infect all life on Earth. These things may be even more dangerous than nuclear weapons, Tuesday, June 4th, 1957. Now that I am fully recovered from that attack, I was discharged from the medical facility. I was able to get a closer look of the ZP organisms. I found that they built massive enclosures with walls of titanium 20 feet thick. The enclosures were heavily monitored, and the glass used had an artificially made energy field to prevent the creatures from escaping. I have had enough of this place. Too many crazy things have happened in the last few months. I will be leaving this facility for good, but I was told not to tell anyone of what Area 51 is hiding, and I will be leaving this journal in the base. Shortly after I finished reading the log entries, a small earthquake hit the base. I hid under a desk to take cover, and I heard glass cracking nearby. When it was over, I walked to the enclosures and found a big crack on the glass as well as a small hole. Inside was a dead Homo colossus, and I saw an orange mist coming out of the body. I ran out of there in terror, and then a security guard caught me as I headed towards the spiral staircase. As I was being handcuffed, I noticed the orange mist going into a rat in the distance.